met directly. I hope sooner I will be coming to Tirupur and address physically, because I think uh, the virtual meetings, no, beyond a point of time. Uh, I think man is being basically a social animal. We always wants to interact on a one-to-one basis or direct basis. So I think, see, we used to teach our boys and students and sons and daughters who are always in laptop, always in mobile. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, for the last 15 months, I think they will be, I think the karma is playing on us. And how they have started asking why you are always in laptop or always in mobile. So therefore, so that's the state. Unfortunately, all of us are forced to be in. But nevertheless, I'm sure that these two will pass. இதுவும் கடந்து போகும் அப்படின்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. அது மாதிரி I think having said this, I think so let us keep our guard carefully, because definitely life has to move on and we cannot remain in-house forever. But having said this, I think we have to exercise some caution, because of the fact that I know the pains of it, because last year in the same month, July, so personally there was twin losses, July 5th and July 23rd. Therefore, for those who have not experienced, they will not know. It's virtually turned the life upside down. I think it's a very difficult this thing to actually, it's very easy to say that yes, life has to move on, all those things. But you have to ask people like me who actually suffered a big loss out of it, and they will know the pains of it. So therefore, my humble request is, I definitely know no one says that life has to move on. We have to do our work, and all these things are right. But uh, so we have to understand the difference between the need and the wants. That's always a very thin dividing line. So therefore, take some precaution, and definitely. So we have ensured that in our office, only people who are vaccinated comes to our office. Articles and all. If they're not vaccinated, say that you can work from home. So all precautions is needed on account of the thing. Sorry that but since I'm sharing because of the fact that incidentally both the persons are also chartered accountants. So therefore it's always been generally my first introductory to this thing, though starts on a sober note, but it's more out of the caution and love and affection with all of you, and how things have dramatically changed. So in July itself, if nowadays so you get a kind of psychological feeling when July comes. So it was June 23rd to July 23rd of last year was terrible for us. So therefore be careful, stay safe, and of course, with safety you can still do whatever you want to do. As the chairman rightly put, so on one side, notwithstanding all those things, the government will continue in the name of ease of doing business. The ease is definitely, is it really there? Is a question. It's a very important point. Do we need these kind of provisions at this point in time? That's a very important question. But nevertheless, they've decided to do it, and we have no option. What is not in our control, you can't do anything. At best, what we can do is try to understand what the section and find out how we can comply with the same and make our clients comply with the same. So it all started in the last year, on 1st October 2020, when they introduced the TCS provisions. And at that point of time itself, I specifically told that I think it's just the beginning. This section will get extended, but I thought they will continue to expand the scope of 206C1H. And at that point of time, they might bring in the TDS section also. That was what I predicted. I would have been very happy if my prediction have gone wrong, but unfortunately the prediction came true. And you can be rest assured that the threshold limit will also come down. It's just a beginning. You can find out in the coming budget, the limit will be further reduced. It's not going to be 10 crores. That will be further reduced, and it will not be 50 lakhs. It will be further reduced. It's going to be, it is not the question of, you sometimes you may come back and say something and actually do something different, though they may claim this is not for the purposes of revenue. But I'm sure that this is one of the revenue raising measures. So though possibly they might say it's more for different purposes, more fake invoices, GST problems, and all this stuff is a reason for introduction. But at the same time, the government also needs revenue. So it is also a revenue raising measure. If that be the case, obviously you will expect the threshold limit also to come down going forward. I'm sure that the coming budget, the 10 crores and 50 lakhs will be further reduced, and the scope of the section is only going to get further extended. So the background of the section, I will just leave it to the branch for you to circulate with yourself. I think but I think we'll start with, of course, before we go to the current section, which the chairman was saying on 1st July 2021, the precursor to the section was 2063(1)(h), which is TCS on sale of goods. That's why the trailer started. Then, of course, it got extended in the TDS also, adding a little bit more to the confusion. So, of course, they try to clarify. The clarification, all of us, so we know that 1st July 2021, the section came into existence, and the clarification issued on 30th of June. That's the terrific speed at which we got the clarification. Having said this, we will first go to 206(c)(1)(h), because the understanding of this section is very important for the purpose of understanding of section 194(q). So every person being a seller who receives any amount as consideration for sale of goods exceeding 50 lakhs in any previous year. So to apply the provisions of 206(c)(1)(h), must be every person. That person has to be a seller, and the seller must be in receipt of any amount as a consideration for sale of goods exceeding 50 lakhs in any previous year, other than the goods which are exported out of India, or the goods which are covered in subsection 1 or 1F or 1G, shall at the time of receipt of such amount collect from the buyer 0.1% of the sale consideration exceeding 50 lakhs as income tax. So basically, the section was introduced, they were just trying to, instead of, as all of us are aware of, there was no TDS on purchases, because under 194(c), TDS will apply for works contract, and the 194(j), TDS will apply for professional services, technical services, royalty, etc. The purchase of goods or the sales were never covered by the TDS or the TCS provisions. So therefore, they decided to bring this sale. Apparently, the section was introduced predominantly for the purposes of, there were a lot of input tax credit have been wrongly claimed by raising the fake invoices. The government thought one way of possibly curbing this could be the introduction of the TCS route. So therefore, they said that if you are a seller and you received consideration exceeding 50 lakhs in any previous year, shall at the time of receipt of such amount collect from the buyer 0.1% of the sale consideration exceeding 50 lakhs. So precisely that's what they're saying. By saying at 0.1%, obviously they're trying to come back and say the intention of the section is not to collect revenue, is more for the purposes of reporting purposes, audit trail or transaction had to be tracked better rather than a source of collection of revenue. So in the event of PAN or Aadhaar number is not furnished, then the rate will go up to 1%, which is 10 times. So for a brief period, of course, due to the last COVID, if the transaction happens between 14th day of May 2020 to 31st March 2021, even the section itself came only from 1st October 2020. So you will be applying 75% of the rate specified. So of course, not applicable from 1st April 2020. Now the provisions of this subsection shall not apply if the buyer is liable to deduct tax at source under any other provisions of this act on the goods purchased by him or from the seller and has deducted such amount. So it's very important to note this particular point. So in order to apply this particular point, the provisions of this subsection, they're trying to mean 206(1)(h) shall not apply if the buyer is liable to deduct tax at source under any other provisions of this act on the goods purchased by him from the seller and has deducted such amount. In the recent clarification, board has clarified 194O, 206C1H, 184Q. If all the three sections become applicable, which section should apply? So they've clarified 194O will apply because, of course, the rate of TDS in the 194O is much higher than that of 206C1H or 184Q. Therefore, the first section to be applied will be 194O. If 194O is not applicable, then 194Q. If 194Q is not applicable, then 206.1H. So therefore, the order of preference is going to be 194O, 194Q, and 206C1H. I think it is also clear in the section also, because the provisions of this section, that is 206C1H, shall not apply if the buyer is liable to deduct tax at source under any other provisions of this act on the goods purchased by him from the seller, and very interestingly, and has deducted such amount. See, the language used in the section that he has deducted. See, there is a possibility of tax is deductible, assuming that the 10 crore and 50 lakhs limit is crossed. The buyer has to deduct tax at source. Now, what if the buyer who is liable to deduct tax at source is failed to do the same? Ideally, the wording in the section should have been deductible. So in that particular case, the obligation is on the buyer, because the board has clarified you should apply only 194Q if both the sections become applicable. So if 194Q and 206C1H both are applicable, you should apply only 194Q. That's what they've clarified. But if you read the section, it says 206C1H will not apply only if the buyer is liable to deduct tax at source under any other provisions of this act on the goods purchased by him from the seller and has deducted such amount. What if the buyer who's liable to deduct is not deducted? The department would come back and say, you have to still apply the provisions. You should have taken from the buyer that, okay, did you deduct? No, then I will collect. So therefore, I think they're trying to cast the duty, unfortunately, here. Ideally, the wording should have been, if the buyer has a liability, then the seller should not be subject to TCS at all. But that is not the language of the section. That's why I've just highlighted the language used section as deducted such amount. So therefore, that's one very interesting point you can observe. The seller means a person whose total sales, gross receipts, or turnover from the business carried on by him exceed 10 crore rupees during the financial year preceding the financial year in which the sale of goods is carried out, not being the person as a central government by notification specifying this behalf. So basically, the seller has to be a person whose total sales, gross receipts, or turnover from the business carried on by him exceed 10 crores. So therefore, the section is very clear that turnover from business alone has to be considered during the financial year immediately preceding the financial year. So if it is 21-22 financial year, you have to see 2021. So which logically puts us a question, what will happen if financial year 21-22 is my first year? Will the section apply? Obviously, the section cannot apply, because to apply the section, the necessity for us to check whether in 2021, if you are looking at 21-22, whether in 2021, whether your turnover exceeds. If you 2021, if you're not in business, the question of applying the section obviously does not arise. So buyer means a person who purchases any goods but does not include central government, state government, embassy, local authority, a person importing goods, or any other person as a central government by notification specified. So most important point is that if you're an importer, the section will not apply. So for importing of goods, other than that, of course, possibly they are routine exceptions only. So so when the section was introduced, quite a lot of questions rising. So just I try to list that. So whether the section will apply for the sales made before the 1st October 2020, So whether the amount received prior to 1st October 2020 be considered for the purpose of the limit of 50 lakhs. So whether TCS is required to be collected on the entire amount or only on the amount in excess of 50 lakhs. So whether you have to consider GST also for determining the turnover or gross receipts. So whether TCS will be inclusive of GST or on the base amount only. Now, can you include the TCS in invoice, or you can raise a separate debit note? And in case if you decide to raise a debit note, whether you should also charge GST on the same, or whether the services sale also covered, and in case if it is covered or not covered, so whether for the turnover of 10 crores, whether that will be included the sale of services. So typically, so one of our client sells computers as well as also does AMC. So their AMC revenue is going to be much more than the sale of the money is made more only in the AMC contract, not on the sale of computers. With Amazon and Flipkart, it's very difficult for you to make margin in the sale of your box. You have to make the killing only out of the services. So obviously they will have a question whether that will also be subject to TCS, and in that particular case, whether it's subject to, and even if it is not there, well, I have to take into account for the limit of 10 crores. So whether the credit for TCS collected can be adjusted against the regular payment of tax, and if yes, in which year the same is going to be available. Can a lower rate of TCS be applied? So I think whether the 197B type, so whether it's also going to be applicable for that 75% will also apply for PAN Aadhaar not been furnished. So whether sales made to is either subject to TCS, and whether sale of shares subject to TCS. These are quite a lot of issues all of us would have encountered. Maybe like most of it could have been already known to your domain, but just for bringing it along the comparison of 184Q, where the clarification came recently. I'm just trying to take all the issues. And of course, the audit for 2021 would not be complete. Therefore, I still believe that this question still becomes relevant because of the fact that we can still find out whether we can rectify this now in the event of any of this not been considered at that point of time. So since the financial has not come to an end, still this issue becomes more relevant. And even otherwise, for 194Q purposes, for a comparison, this becomes relevant. So now why this question? The question basically arises because unlike 184Q, where the TDS is going to be at the time of credit or payment, whichever is earlier, TCS will apply only on the receipt of the consideration. So therefore the issue becomes a little bit more interesting. I might have already done the sales prior to 1st October 2020. So I might have received the same after 1st October 2020. Whether I should collect TCS. The only question which arises no, without me raising the invoice, how I will be in a position to collect the TCS. That becomes a very important point because the issue was also raised. And of course, there was a clarification. The clarification was pretty interesting. Now, the issue arises because the obligation of the tax is linked with the receipt of the consideration. Now, since the sale consideration received post 1st October 2020, the view would be the obligation to collect gets triggered on such amounts also. But the real challenge here could be I would not have raised in my invoice the TCS component of it. So therefore, how to get it? Now, in my view, even today, I think definitely there will be litigation on this particular point. I'm sure that the courts will have to interfere and clarify this particular point because of the fact that a lot of people were not able to actually collect the same. So therefore, surely we can expect some element of litigation here. Now, since the payments pertain to the period prior to 1st of 2020, but the section itself is not applicable. So therefore, in my view, though despite the clarification from the board, the TCS should not apply on such amount. So in order to trigger, it should be sold and received after 1st October 2020, rather than all receipts after 1st October 2020. And to substantiate this particular point, the additional amount is to be collected from the buyer, and without raising an invoice, it is not possible for me to collect. So, of course, the department could always come back and say you can raise a debit note and therefore you can still collect it. But of course, we all know practically how the business operates, especially in the normal circumstances itself. We all know that people always find reasons for delaying the amount, including our invoices. So they will come back and say that your education cess is not split. So your invoices in font size 11, 12. So many things people have invent reasons for delaying the payment. If that be the case, one which I have not charged, getting that is always going to be a more challenging one. So these are some very strong reasons to say that the payment for sales made for the period prior to 1st October 2020 should not be subject to TCS. But however, what could be the department's view, which has also been clarified through their clarification? So there is a very important point. So what they are trying to say is a very interesting point. So for making it subject to TCS, I think they gave a very interesting. They just try to give it as if it is a benefit given to us. I think the way in which they try to sell is very interesting. As a seller, in most of the cases, maintains a running account of the buyer in which payments are generally not linked with a particular sale. I think should the board, how the board came to know all these things, we do not know. Therefore, in order to simplify ease of compliance, see, this is something quite amazing. So they made a beautiful point. So therefore, they just try to create as if we are doing this for simplification. In order to simplify and ease the complaints, at least they could have simplified to apply. But the reason looks very interesting for me. In order to simplify and ease the complaints of the collector, it may be noted that this TCS provision shall be applicable on the amount of all sale consideration received on or after 1st October 2020, without making any adjustment for the amount received in respect of sales made before 1st October 2020. So mandating the collector to identify and exclude the amount in respect of sales made up to 30th September 2020 from the amount received on or after 1st October 2020 would have resulted into undue compliance burden for the collector and also litigation. I think this particular clarification from the board, I think supports my point that, see, what they are trying to say, see, generally most people will not be in a position to bifurcate. Therefore, I am only giving a concession to you. I'm just trying to do only a favor to you. That favor is don't confuse, don't break your head. This for all receipts after 1st October 2020, you collect. But if you read, this looks more to be a concession. Just read the points which are very important. So in so I will just show some pointer here. So if you just look at this, is to simplify and ease the complaints of the collector. So therefore, this seems to be more a beneficial provision is what they're trying to say. So therefore, if I'm able to maintain separately, if I'm able to clearly earmark, I don't need this concession, because this, they say that only for my benefit. They're not saying that no, it's our problem. It's only say I'm solving your problem. So therefore, I have no problem at all. I, in my accounting package, maintain bill to bill. I have no problems at all. I will be positioned to identify. So therefore, I don't need this concession. So now look at the next point also. Mandating the collector to identify and exclude in respect of 30th September from amount received would have resulted into undue compliance burden. So therefore, I think this clarification is more for the purposes of, I don't want you to break your heads. That's all. I am making things easier for you. Okay, fine. I am a complicated person. I want to things complicated. I'm able to bifurcate. I have no problems at all. I'm able to identify. In that particular case, what should be the provision? The clarification is only says for your benefit I'm doing. I'm not saying that's how the section is. But if I don't have a section, you are going to suffer. I'm not going to suffer. I'm maintaining all the data perfectly. In that case, so therefore, in my view, so if you are able to bifurcate, if you are able to do that, the section will apply only for the sales made after 1st October 2020 and received after 1st October 2020 only. The 2 points which I shown shaded in yellow very clearly shows this seems to be for your benefit, and that is not the way they want the section to be. That's the point. So moving on, whether the threshold limit of 50 lakhs to be considered only from the sales made from 1st October 2020 or for the prior period also. I think way back from 1994, this is the kind of stand they have been taking for quite some time. In fact, the first time the clarification came for 194I when it was introduced from 1st June 1994. Because when you are trying to introduce the section from the middle of the year, so always the question will arise as one, whether section will apply only from that particular date, the answer is yes. But invariably, we all know the section uses about the aggregate amount paid or payable during the financial year. So at 194I itself, they clarified, though the section from 1/6/1994, the section will apply from 1/6/1994, but for applying the threshold limit, I'll take from 1st of April. I think to be very fair to the board, and this has been the stand they've been consistently taking, I don't think we had any issue at all, though there is a clarification. The section uses the word receives any amount as consideration for sale of goods exceeding 50 lakhs in any previous year. So therefore, for the 50 lakhs limit, you also take into account whatever amount you receive from 1st of April to 30th of September. But TCS will apply only on the amount received after 1st October 2020. So it will not apply for the amount which you have collected prior to 1st October 2020. Now, so how will the TCS will be collected? So only on the amount received. For example, a seller received 1 crore before 1st October 2020 from a particular buyer and receives 5 lakhs after 1st October 2020. Now the question is, how do you make it? So 50 lakhs, in excess of 50 lakhs, it come to 55 lakhs. But what you received after 1st October is only 5 lakhs. So therefore, the clarification makes it very clear that you have to collect only on 5 lakhs. So it also broadly confirms our understanding that 50 lakhs is more like a threshold limit, and once you cross the threshold limit, section will apply only for the excess amount. It's not on the entire amount. Maybe if you take the case of 194J, if it is 31,000, the section will apply on the entire 31,000. So once you cross the threshold limit, whether it is 194I or J or any section, the section becomes applicable on the entire amount. But that is not the case in the case of this section. So again, the most important point here is that whether for the purposes of 10 crores of turnover, whether I have to consider the GST or not. Again, we have to go by the guidance note of the institute with the reference to the tax audit. So same methodology we can adopt. If the seller indicates a price excluding GST, the same is required separately. The same need not have to be included for the purpose of determining the turnover or gross receipts of sales. Obviously, you cannot include GST, so we have to follow only the exclusive method, not inclusive method. So of course, this is based on the clarification of the institute in tax audit also. But the most important point, so whether I should also include GST for the purpose of my TCS. That's a very, suppose if my sales is 100 and 18 is my GST, should I have to take it on 118 or on 100? Of course, the most logical interpretation should have been, that's what we would have expected the board to clarify, that it should be only on the 100, not on 118, because GST by no stretch of imagination can be said to be your consideration. So therefore, the logic demands that GST should not be included for the purposes of TCS. But interestingly, the circular number 17 dated 29th of September 2020, as far as at least you can be very happy that for TCS, the clarification, the section was applicable 1st October, circular was issued on 29th of September. Whereas in the case of TDS 194Q from 1st of October, the clarification by virtue of circular number 13 of 2021 That was on 30th of June. So that's very interesting, and why the board has to take the last day or the one before that to clarify is something which is very surprising. Nevertheless, TCS 29th of September for 1st October applicability. TDS in the 194Q 30th June, whereas the section was applicable 1st of July. But the clarification, we are not going to get enough time to understand the clarification and represent to them. So that is the point they have to understand. So you give some clarification, that could be a clarification, record on that clarification. In fact, most of the time, the clarification actually causes more clarification. So, but however, when you give it the last minute, it is not possible for anybody to react. In fact, we have to communicate to the client. So after receiving something on 29th of September, if I'm going to send on 30th September, assuming that I'm so fast, the client asks the question, sir, the section applicable 1st October, you are sending a note on 30th September night. How can we follow? Sir, that is the day on which I got the clarification. So I think that also becomes very difficult for us to explain. So, however, they very, very clearly mentioned that no adjustment on account of sales return or discount or indirect taxes, including GST, is required to be made for collection of tax under 206(c)(1)(h) of the Act, since the collection is made with reference to the receipt of amount of sale consideration. In my view, this position is in contrary to the principles which were given or taken for the TDS Wyatt Circular number 23 of 2017, dated 19th July, that there is no requirement for TDS for GST for TDS purposes. I made it very clear that service tax or GST will not be considered if the payment is made to a resident. Because earlier you may be aware of, initially they said this will not apply only for 194I, circular number 4 over 2008. Subsequently, over what they have done is they have extended all resident payments on the recommendations or on the suggestion made by the Rajasthan High Court, which made a beautiful point. Can't say service tax is part of your professional fees. So therefore, the scope of not including service tax has got to be extended to all sections. In the light of the Rajasthan High Court judgment, the board has immediately acted swiftly on this particular point. I think they've circle number 1 by 2014. So where they said that service tax will not be considered for TDS for any resident payments. And post the introduction of GST, the circle number 23 of 2017, dated July 19, 2017. So just look at the sequence, circle number 4 by 2008, which is only for 184I, then circle number 1 by 2014 for all resident payments, and then you have circle number 23 of 2014 extending the service tax clarification or circular to GST also. But whereas the same has not been considered for the purpose of TCS. When it comes to the question of TCS, they're just trying to make a very important point that you should also include GST. So, which is very, very unfortunate. But nevertheless, that is what their clarification. So, we are entitled to still dispute this particular point as well. And my strong feeling is that GST should not be taken because it's at no stretch of imagination is a part of your sale consideration. So, we are only acting as an agent, collecting from the other person and debiting the account. So, whether TCS should be included in invoice or a debit note to be raised, ideally, it should be charged in the invoice itself. However, since the obligation to get only on receipt, debit note option can also be considered for a better tracking. So, what we have suggested, many of our clients is one of those. But the only question which arises now, suppose if I raise a debit note for the TCS, whether or not should I have to apply GST? So, of course, this time the CBST has clarified to circle number 76/50/2018. The TCS is not a tax on goods, but an interim levy on the possible income arising from sale of goods by the buyer and to be adjusted against final income tax liability of the buyer. And therefore, no GST is required on the TCS component of it. So, I think that's a important clarification from CBIC, which we can rely upon in the event of you going for debit note route to raise the TCS. Whether sale of services is also covered by the section, but the turnover of services will also be included for considering 10 crore limit. So this is a very important point. So there is a clarification which has come in 194Q. Of course, what we asked and what they clarified looks to be slightly different. But I'll come to that at the time of 194Q, their latest clarification of the same. Now, it's very clear the section does not cover services. It covers only sale of goods. But however, the turnover from business is the language used. If I just quickly go to the section, just for the benefit of all of us, just for the understanding of the section. So if you see this particular point, the third bullet point, who receives any amount as a consideration for sale of goods exceeding 50 lakhs in the previous year. So therefore, for applying the section, it should be only for receipt of the consideration for sale of goods. There is no doubt about it. But however, when you see the application of the section, whose total sales or gross receipts or turnover from the business carried on by him exceed 10 crore rupees during the financial year, immediately preceding the financial year. I think there seems to be a slight dichotomy here. Section applies only for receipt of consideration for sale of goods. But for applicability of the section seems to be talking about your total sales of gross receipts or turnover from the business. Taking my example, which I already said. So one of our client sells computers, and they also, as a part of their thing, do execute AMC contracts. As I told you, the margin is substantial only in the AMC contract. Obviously, the box doesn't give you big margin, and the margin shrinked consequent to Amazon and Flipkart's. Virtually, this is almost no margin type of the things. In fact, there's no retail market at all. It's only an enterprise market. You can cater to this. You can't do retail at all. So it has to be an enterprise, and the enterprise more buys from you, more for the AMC and the services you're going to do. And they're not going to buy for the computer, because they can as well buy from Amazon directly at a much lesser price, especially when the number of computers is going to be more. They're going to save. So only reason they come to you is because you are going to be always available 24/7, 365 for maintenance and services. So the issue here is one, whether it is applicable for the AMC. The answer maybe 194. It's also because of TDS provisions of 194C is also going to be applicable. It's a different story. I'm not getting into that. But even otherwise, the section will not apply because of the fact that it is not a goods. It's only a services. The second point is whether the sale of AMC should it be considered for the 10 crore limit. I think that is where the department could take a stand. Though the section is applicable only for the consideration, the language used the section is turnover from the business. So they can't say this is not the business. This is also the business. So therefore, for turnover purposes, the department could take a stand that the section, the TCS will not apply. For applying the turnover limit, still they might come to a point that you have to include the sale of services also. So for the turnover limit, they will still say services sale should be also included, though the section itself is applicable only for the receipt of consideration for sale of goods. So, okay, whether the TCS can be adjusted against your regular payment of tax, and if that be the case, so in which year you can take the credit for the TCS. As far as TDS is concerned, of course, there is no problems at all, because we all know that there's a specific provision, section 199 of the Income Tax Act, which specifically provides the credit for TDS will be available in the year in which income is offered for tax. So to that extent, all of us are very familiar with 199 of the Income Tax Act relating to the TDS part of it. But what about the TCS part of it? 206C4 speaks very clear that any amount collected in accordance with the provisions of this section and paid to the credit of central government shall be deemed to be the payment of tax on behalf of the person from whom the amount has been collected, and the credit shall be given to such person for the amount so collected in a particular assessment year in accordance with the rules as may be prescribed. So therefore, 206 wants you to refer to the rules. And when you go to the rule 37I2A, which very clearly specifies that 206C, 1F1G, 1H credit can be claimed from the person from whom the amount collected paid to the central government for the assessment year relevant to the previous year in which tax collection is made. So therefore, you can claim the credit for the TCS in the year in which the tax is collected at source, and it's not going to be like your TDS where it's going to be available in the year in which the income is offered for tax. But here, the income in year with the tax collection is made. In fact, if that is my strongest recommendation to the government, even for TDS also. I think we have to avoid this complexity of this 199, the year in which you should offer the income for tax. A simple mechanism they could adopt. I think this is what they should also do it for TDS also. That's my humble view. They should give the credit for TDS in the year in which the tax is deducted and remitted. I think that way the law becomes much simpler. All these complexities of reconciling. So we have learned in our 11th standard reconciliation between cash book and bank book, VRS. Then when we started coming to intermediate, we started learning about reconciliation between financial profit and costing profit. So now, after this, now Form 26 says and all, we have got another new reconciliation which we started. TDS as per books, TCS, the reconciliation between the two. I think the more simpler, easier could be like what we have in the case of a TCS. In the year in which TDS deducted, forget about in the which year you are offering for tax. Year in which TDS, see, the government has got the amount of tax that has been all remitted to you. That's all simple. In that year, you adjust the TDS. At the end of the day, the government has already collected the tax, it has received the amount. In that year, if they adjust, the law becomes more simple and more easier. I think they could simply follow the TCS route. That's my humble view, which I've been definitely recommending for quite some time. Though, of course, no changes have been made till now. So whether buyer can apply for low rate of TCS, low rate of TCS is not available for 206C or 1H. It's available only for 206C 1 or 1C, because already the rate is only 0.1%, and I don't think they can give nil or anything. So that could be the reason for the same. So you don't have any other thing. So I'll skip the previous part because it's later the last year. Whether the sales made to SEZ is subject to TCS. It looks like the answer is yes. Since the sale is made to SEZ or not export out of India, TCS will apply. But there is an interesting clarification which they have given, which they also say it's applicable for 261H also, but that clarification is given under 194Q. And in 194Q clarification, when they made, they also said this clarification applies to 206C 1H also. Therefore, I'll come back to this particular point. Though I said yes, since the sales made TSA not export out of India, TCS will apply. In the light of the clarification by the board and the 194Q, it is possible for us to take a slightly different stand. We'll come to that a little bit later when we try to take 194Q. So that's a very interesting point. Whether sale of shares is subject to TCS, whether shares, because all of us will be aware of very famous case of Tata Consultant Services or TCS. So where Supreme Court held that shares is also goods. So therefore, in the light of that decision of the Supreme Court in the TCS, whether the TCS provisions will also apply for sale of shares. The Board Circular 17/2020 clarifies that TCS will not apply to transactions in securities and commodities which are traded through recognized stock exchanges, are cleared and settled by the recognized clearing corporation, including recognized stock exchanges or recognized clearing corporation located in International Financial Service Center. So therefore, it appears from this particular circle from the board that the sale made through stock exchanges, the commodity stock exchanges, whether you are making a sale through BSE, NSE, MCX, and so on and so forth, that will not be subject to TCS. But outside that, if you make a sale of shares, so if let's assume a private sale of shares happens, I think there is a very strong possibility of taking a stand that TCS will apply because of the fact they're not going to be done in the stock exchanges. Since the Supreme Court has already taken a stand that the shares are goods, it's possible to take a stand that TCS will apply. So I think that is something which we need to consider. Whether sale of immovable property subject to TCS? The answer is no, because immovable properties are not goods, and therefore the question of applying TCS does not arise. So before we wind up the final thoughts about this, so every seller whose total sales gross receipt term business should exceed 10 crores in the preceding financial year, if it is for 2021, 1920, if it is for 21-22, it's 2021, shall at the time of receipt of consideration for sale of any goods exceeding 50 lakhs, so should collect from the buyer other than the exceptions provided. So 0.07% up to 31st March, then 1% thereafter as TCS. So the rate goes to 1% if there is no PAN or Aadhaar. So TCS will apply only for sale of goods, not for service. TCS not applicable for export of goods. TCS not applicable if the buyer is liable to deduct TDS and is also deducted the same. Goods will also exclude those which are covered by the other provisions of 206C. And based on the clarification respect of TDS provisions and on a logical basis, GST should not be considered as a part of sale consideration, both for the purpose of calculation of threshold and TCS. However, on a conservative basis, due to the clarification by the Central Board of Direct Taxes, you can include GST also for the purpose of TCS. So, so I'm just skipping this particular slide in terms of how do you account it, because these were the questions which were asked last time, and how do we go about it. So therefore I've given, but I think we have more or less settled on this particular point. Therefore I just skip this slide. I've just leave the slide. You can have a look at it. If there's any clarifications, you can into that. So how we'll move to the TDS provisions now. So this is the one which was introduced from 1st July 2021. So the 2061 is the curtain riser or a trailer for what's going to come in future. What I thought was they will reduce the limit in 206 or introduce. I gave two options at the time of discussion of 2061H. I said they may bring a TDS provisions also and remove 2061H. There is only a precursor, or 2061H itself, they will reduce the limit. But I never expected they will continue both the sections. And as a result of it, the first confusion for all of us, should I have to apply that section or this section, or if you're an e-com operator also, then whether 194O also will apply. So therefore, essentially, they could have lived up with only one of them, but nevertheless, they have now have three sections possible in purchase: 194O or 2061H or 194Q. So in 194Q, which is the TDS on purchase of goods, who is required to deduct tax? It's a buyer. So whereas if you just recall in 2061H, the seller is going to collect the TCS. The seller will collect the TCS, but whereas here the person making the payment should deduct TDS. Whereas the person who is in receipt of the consideration will collect the tax from you, that is 2061H. So here the buyer is the one who is supposed to deduct TDS before making a payment. Threshold limit: the purchase of goods of the value or aggregate of such value should exceed 50 lakhs. This is similar to that of what we discussed in 206(1)H. The receipt of consideration should exceed 50 lakhs. Here, the purchase of goods. Rate at which the tax to be deducted is same as what we have discussed. There, 0.1% of the amount exceeding 50 lakhs will be collected. Here, you have to deduct. So applicability section applies from 1st July 2021. Like most of the provisions of TDS, the point of deduction of tax at the time of credit or payment, whichever is earlier. The time of credit or payment, whichever is earlier, and the recipient has to be a resident. See, the recipient has to be a resident. That's what is very important. At the time of credit or payment, whichever is earlier, just recall 2061. That section will apply only when the amount is received. But here, credit or payment, whichever is earlier. So it's very important note for the first 3 months of this financial year, 260(1)(h) will also already apply because that's applicable 1st October 2020. That's where the confusion is going to be. Who is the buyer? Buyer means a person whose total sales or gross receipts or turnover from the business carried on by him exceed 10 crores during the financial year, immediately preceding the financial year in which the purchase of goods is carried out. So there, the seller means a person whose total sales or gross receipts or turnover from the business carried on exceed 10 crores. So therefore, it's a very interesting point what we must understand there. So there is a possibility of the seller's turnover may not have exceeded 10 crores, but buyer sales would have exceeded 10 crores or vice versa. So, and maybe a situation where both buyer and seller cross the threshold limit of 10 crores. Any of them is possible. So if only the seller's turnover exceeds 261(h) alone will apply. And if the buyer sales exceeds, only 194(q) will apply. In the event of both of them satisfying this condition, as we already seen, so 261(h) very clearly says if the TDS is required to be deducted under any of the provisions act and the other person is deducted, then 261(h) will apply. That means between 194(q) versus 261(h), 194(q) will prevail over 261(h). And we also have a clarification from the board on this particular part, which we'll see shortly. So this, since we already discussed about this particular part, I'll skip this. This is a very interesting point. So how do you consider the meaning of the term goods? Because if you take the case of CGST Act, the goods means every kind of a movable property other than money and securities, but includes actionable claim. Whereas in the Sale of Goods Act, every kind of movable property other than actionable claims and money. So one important question, because maybe there is a speculation already going on that Tamil Nadu government might introduce lottery again, because that's one major source of revenue for the state government. Since the lotteries are abolished now, so we lose substantial amount of taxes on the same. So therefore, there is a very, very strong rumors which are going on that Tamil Nadu may once again introduce this. So of course, like we have a long queue before the Taskmark shop. The next thing, so in my place in Mylapore, near the Mylapore railway station, in those days when the lotteries are also there, two places there will be a huge crowd. One place will be this this lottery tickets. It's called as scratch card மாதிரி கொடுத்துருப்பாங்க ஆக்சுவலா. அங்க ஒரு பெரிய கியூ வந்துட்டு இருக்கும். அப்படியே அந்த கியூ முடிச்சு அங்க டாஸ்மாக்ல இருக்கும் ஆக்சுவலா. So I think the queue might get split between two, or maybe will be there one set of queue will be there and another set of this thing will be there. But main point is that whether the sale of lottery, whether there is a GST is going to be there or not, because that's question, because that's likely to be introduced, we may have to be ready with an answer for the same. Now, if you look at CGST Act, it includes actionable claim, but whereas in Sale of Goods Act, it does not include actionable claims. But what should I do for the TDS and TCS? What should I take as a question? Which definition I should take? If I apply the CGST definition, I definitely TDS and TCS will apply. But if I go by Sale of Goods Act definition, it will not apply because lottery is an actionable claim. So in my view, the Sale of Goods Act is one which you have to consider because of the fact that CGST Act is only for the restrictive purposes of levy of CGST. The definition of goods is the more specific law is the Sale of Goods Act. So therefore, you should go only by SOG Act and not by CGST Act, and therefore there won't be any TDS requirement under 194(q) on the lottery tickets part of it. So I'll just take a small thing just to relax a bit since we have close to 1 hour. Or a break மாதிரி வச்சுக்கலாம் இந்த particular. So a necessity is a doctor who is also as a clinic and also owns a medical shop. The medical shop turnover is 8 crores. The turnover from clinic is 3 crores. Whether 194(q) applies. So again, there is also clarification is also there. So can I include my receipts of 3 crores from my clinic and medical shop, can they be combined? The answer is, in my view, no, because of the fact that professional receipts and turnover of goods cannot be compared. But at the same time, department could still make an argument that it is also a business only, so therefore it should be considered. But this is profession. One is this thing. Even in 44 AB, they come out different clauses, and a lot of times the courts have held that you can't combine A plus B. So therefore, in the event of just a lighter side of it, buddy. So there's also a judgment which I've given just to relax before we continue with that section. Or in between or small break marriage. So now, so when TDS is not required under section 194Q, the tax is deductible under any of the provisions of this act. That's why the board has also clarified very clearly that if 194O becomes applicable, that section will prevail over this section, because there the rate of TDS is also very high. And similarly, if any other provisions, I think 194O is the one which is the more likely one, because in e-commerce transactions, so where there is a requirement to deduct TDS in that section. The tax is collectible under section 206C, other than the transaction to which 206C 1H applies. Therefore, it's absolutely, they made it very clear. So that's why the board has also clarified this on the order or which section to be applied. So if TDS is deductible in either provisions, go under that provision. 206C, other than 206C 1H, if the TCS provision applies, then TCS will apply. But if a 206 1H versus 194Q, it's only 194Q. And central government might also specify people in the notified people will be outside. So therefore, again, we have a long list of questions, issues, which are based on the clarifications from the board a day before the section came in effect, circular number 13 of 2021, in case if you want to make a reference. So whether the section will apply for purchases or advance made or received before 1st July 2021. Same like you might see that's just the same kind of questions we already had in the case of 261H, modified for the purposes of 194Q. Now, in the case of 261H, the section applies for any receipt of consideration on or after 1st October 2020. That is, 194Q mandates the deduction of TDS at the time of credit of payment, whichever is earlier, from 1st July 2021. So therefore, the board has clarified that any sum credited or paid before 1st July 2021, then that transaction will not be subject to the provisions of 194Q. This is a very interesting point. In 261H, what we are concerned about, any receipt after 1st October 2020, we are not bothered about when did the transaction happen, if you go purely by the board circular. But when it comes to the question of 194Q, if you have received or if you have credited before 1st July, the section will apply. So what is very important, if either of the two events had happened before 1st July 2020, for example, you receive advance of 40 lakhs before 1st July, for which the invoice is raised and goods are supplied after 1st July 2021, 194Q will not apply for that transaction. That is what is very important from the board clarification. This is not my version, it's board itself has said, if any of the two events, what are the two events which they talk about? Either the payment or the credit, whichever occurs earlier. So any one of them, then you will not be subject to 194Q. So whether the amount received or credited to be considered for the purpose of limit of 50 lakhs, I think by the time, as I told you, as I mentioned you earlier, I think this has been the stand which they are taking right from 1994 when they introduced section 194I. From there onwards, the same clarification when 194C from per contract extended to aggregate of contracts in 1st October 2004. Anything which they've introduced in between, even in the case of 194 IA 194N, I think this has been, I think we have to give it to the CBDTR or the board here. They have been consistent on this particular point, that for the purposes of applying the threshold limit, we will take from 1st of April though the section could be effective from the middle of the year. So same point here. So therefore, you consider from 1st of April for the limit of 50 lakhs. So whether TDS is required to be collected or deducted on the amount in excess of 50 lakhs, I think the same point should apply for 184Q also. Now, this is a very interesting stand. I think whether GST to be included for determining the turnover of gross receipts, etc. So I think this is something which I used to also take in my early days, financial management also. I think one particular point from a book called Wayne Horn will be something which I always used to remember. Some of you may be aware of a theory called Modigliani-Miller theory or MM theory. So Modigliani-Miller, incidentally, they got a Nobel Prize for their contribution to finance. Of course, I'm just sorry for diverting, but it's a very interesting point. I thought I can share it in the context of this particular clarification. Modigliani-Miller used to argue that there is no capital structure is ideal. Every capital structure is an ideal capital structure. That is what that theory is all about. They'll always come back and they say that there is nothing called a debt equity at all. So any capital structure is ideal capital structure, for which they say that in case if you raise through the debt, the expectation of the equity shareholders will go up, and their expectation will go up to such an extent, or to borrow a more easier language, the PE multiple will fall. So if you have 100% equity, that company's PE multiple will be more than a company which has got a debt. So therefore, if you raise through debt, your PE multiple will fall, and if you are going to have the vice versa. So at the end of the day, what they say that the debt, there's nothing called ideal debt equity ratio or ideal capital structure. All capital structures will produce the same value to the firm only, which is arrived by EBITDA by the overall cost of capital. That's what his theory used to be. But this theory was before the introduction of tax. But after the introduction of tax, they used to say that they will talk about what is the value of levered firm and what's the value of unlevered firm, and they will always come back and say the value of levered firm will be the value of unlevered firm plus the tax rate into the debt. If you apply this concept, you will always find the value of levered firm is going to be always more than value of unlevered firm. So Wayne Horn used to beautifully say, Modigliani-Miller throughout they've argued that there is no capital structure is ideal and every capital structure will produce same results. But after the introduction of tax, when they gave the value of the firm, they said the value of levered firm will be added by value of unlevered firm plus tax into debt. That means if you apply this theory, always capital structure of debt of 100% will produce more value. So that means I consistently made an argument that there is no ideal capital structure. But after the introduction of tax, the value of the firm goes up only when you have 100% of debt. Though in reality, there cannot be 100% debt possibility. Wayne Horn will write one line. This theory, Modigliani-Miller will find it difficult to digest even in the heaven. Beautiful wordings. This line, because I always argued 100 no capital structure is ideal, but when introduction of tax, my theory suggests that the value of a levered firm will always be more. So that means there is a capital structure. Now, why this particular point in the context of this? The board has maintained through the circular number 1 by 2014. Then you also had a circular numbers which we already talked about, 17 of 2020 also, and in earlier circulars also, we have made it very clear that GST should not be considered or indirect tax should not be considered for the purpose of TDS. But unfortunately, in the case of 2061H, they took a stand that TCS is inclusive of GST. Now they are faced with the same situation now in 194Q. See, 194Q and 2061H are they're twins. Only thing is that applicability is different, but they are more or less similar. Having taken a stand in the case of 2061H, all of us were wondered what stand they will take for 194Q. Will they go by their own circular which they've issued in TDS provisions, or will they follow for this section alone? They will follow that. But அதே very வேணுகன் சொல்ற மாதிரி தான் this particular situation a draft of the circular will find it difficult to digest even in the heaven அப்படி சொல்ல மாதிரி அவரே சொல்லுவார் யாரா இந்த சர்க்குலர் போட்டா அப்படின்னு அவரே சொல்லுவார் நினைக்கிறேன் அவர் மேல போன ஆக்சுவலா so now having already taken a stand that TDS provisions will not cover the GST, so therefore they are forced. So this is what they say. It is requested to clarify that whether adjustment is required to make for GST for purchase returns for the purpose of tax reduction to 194Q. White Circular number 17 of 2020 dated 29 September 2030 has clarified that no adjustment on account of GST is required to be made for collection of tax under subsection 1H of 206C since the collection is made with reference to receipt to the amount of sale consideration. However, the situation is different so far as the TDS is concerned. It has been clarified in Circular number 23 of 2017 dated 19th July 2017. Wherever in terms of the agreement or contract between the payee and payer, the component of GST on services comprised in the amount payable to resident is indicated separately, then tax shall be deducted at source under Chapter 17B of the Income Tax Act on the amount paid or payable without including such GST on the services component. So GST for this purposes shall include IGST, CGST, and SGST. And what about 194Q? So therefore they said, so for 194Q, accordingly, in the light of the clarification given under Circular number 23 of 2017, we are not going to take the Circular number 17 of 2020. So for 194Q, the tax is required to be deducted at the time of credit of the amount in the account of the seller, and in terms of the agreement or contract between the buyer and seller, the component of GST comprised in the amount payable to the seller is indicated separately, then tax shall be deducted under 194Q on the amount credited without including GST. So they have, they are just trying, they having already given a circular 17 of 2020, which contradicted with their circular number 23 of 2017. They are caught in a bind now. Which one they should follow for 194Q? 194Q, if they take circular number 17, then circular number 20 becomes a problem. So, இது ஒரு காம்ப்ரமைஸ் பண்ணும் எப்படியான அப்படியே ஒரு வேன்ஹான் நம்ம மோடிலானி மில்லர் மாரி சொல்லிட்டோம் ஒரு ஸ்டாண்டு எந்த செக்ஷனுமே ஐடியா இல்லை அப்படின்ட்டு ஸோ தென் வி ஹேவ் டு டேக் அ ஸ்டாண்ட் அப்படியே ஒரு மழுப்பின்ண்டே போவார்ப்பா மோடல் despite the fact being no his contribution to finance is brilliant. But ஒரு பொசிஷன் எடுத்தாச்சு இது பண்ணா the same bind is what CBDT was now. They took a stand in 2017 that GST will not be considered. And in 2020, they took a different stand for 261H. Then suddenly they are saddled with the same problem in 194Q. இப்போ இதுவா அதுவா எதை சொல்றது எதில் போட்டாலும் கான்ஃபிளிக்ட். So therefore they are just trying to push அடையே ஒரு மாதிரி. So now ஒரு புது இன்வென்ஷன் பண்ணாங்க ஆக்சுவலா. At the time of credit TDSனா அப்படியே மண்டையை உடைச்சிட்டு போய் சமாளிக்கிறதுக்கு எப்படிதான் சமாளிக்கிறதுன்ற மாதிரி தான். For the credit, if your invoice indicates separately GST, they say TDS is not required. Now, they then added one beautiful twist there. However, if TDS is deducted on payment basis, because the payment is earlier than the credit, the tax would be deducted on the whole amount, as it is not possible to identify the payment with GST component and the amount to be invoiced in future. ஏன் தெரியாது 5 லட்சம் ரூபாய் நான் கொடுக்குற பேமெண்ட் ஆஃப் அட்வான்ஸ் டாக்ஸ் ஐ வில் டேக் இட் அஸ் 118, take 100 by 118. What is my problem in identifying? The advance ஏன் தெரியாது? GST purpose advance போட்டு அப்படியே கேட்டுட்டு போறோம் கிடையாது. So therefore somewhere the problem is you took one stand and unfortunately took a different stand and now you have to saddle with the same problem. அடே ஒரு அதுவும் தப்பு இதுவும் கரெக்ட் அப்படின்ற மாதிரி ஒரு I'm trying to manage. That's a classic example. They're trying to manage the conflict, and therefore they thought they would have managed the conflict. I'll just leave it to your discretion whether they manage the conflict or they could have simply said we made a mistake while clarifying in circular number 17 of 2020 that GST should not be included. Therefore, we'll make amendment to that circular. We'll be consistent. Simple. அதுவும் வேணும் எனக்கு 23/2017 வேணும், 17/2020 வேணும். So therefore, how do I manage that? In circular number 13 of 2021. So circular number 13 of 2021 is a mix of 17/2020 and 23 of 2017. Some mix. So credit lana GST வேண்டாம், பேமெண்ட் பேசிஸ்னா ஜிஎஸ்டியோட சேர்த்து தான் யூ ஹாவ் டு டிடெக்ட் TDS. செம்மையா ஒரு பயங்கரமான ஒரு கான்செப்ட் ஆகும். ஸோ ஸோ இஃப் யூ ஆர், எனக்கு இந்த கிளாரிஃபிகேஷன் பார்த்தோம்னா எனக்கு என்ன அறியாம அப்படியே இந்த நிறைய ஒரு இதெல்லாம் சொல்லுவாங்க ஆக்சுவலா, மயிர் கூச்செரியும் காட்சிகள் அப்படின்னு அப்படியே நம்மள அறியாம நம்ம முடிய அப்படியே சில சமயங்கள் அந்த ஃபைட்ஸ் எல்லாம் பார்த்தாங்க. அந்த மாதிரி இந்த கிளாரிஃபிகேஷனை பார்த்தோன்னே வாட் எவர் லிட்டில் ஏர் ஐ ஹேட் இன் மை திஸ் திங் ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்கா நின்றுச்சு அப்படியே ஆக்சுவலா. எப்பறம் செம்மையா அப்படியே சமாளிக்க ட்ரை பண்றீங்க, பட் ஐ திங்க் they could have solved it much easily in எனக்கு தோன்றது actually. So the next point is whether purchase returns to be considered for the purpose of TDS. We already seen in the clarification they try to make TCS plus sales returns. They have made a one-liner that GST expenses எதுவுமே எடுத்துக்காது, எல்லாத்துக்கும் சேர்த்து TCS கொடுத்துட்டு அப்படின்னு சொல்லியாச்சு. So now what about TDS? No, they made a simple point. See, already you made a purchase and you already deducted TDS. So at the time of purchase returns, where is the question of this? That's what they say. Already TDS actually. Where is the question? Why you are asking such a silly question whether purchase returns are subject to TDS and all? All these things. So they said already put charge. Now, what they are saying is that if the amount is returned, it's a very interesting clarification. And if your purchase is returned, the money is refunded, then a tax deducted may be adjusted against the next purchase against the same seller. சரி, நெக்ஸ்ட் சேல்ஸே இல்லை, ஒரே சேல்ஸ் தான் இருக்கு, அடுத்த சேல்ஸே இல்லை, என்ன பண்றது? ஸோ ஐ கான்ட் ப்ரிசியூம் தட் ஆல் மை பர்ச்சேஸ் அண்ட் சேல்ஸ் ஆர் ஆல்வேஸ் கோயிங் டு பி கண்டினியூஸ்னு கிடையாது. ஒன் டைம் பர்ச்சேசஸ் நம்ம பண்ணோம்னா என்ன பண்றது? ஸோ வாட் தேர் சேயிங், ரீட் தி கிளாரிஃபிகேஷன். If that is the case and against this purchase return the money is refunded by the seller, then this tax deducted may be adjusted against the next purchase against the same seller. No adjustment is required if the purchase return is replaced by the goods by the seller, as in that particular case, the purchase no tax was deducted in the 194Q has been completed with goods replaced. So purchase return திருப்பி goods replace பண்ணியா ஒன்றும் ப்ராப்ளம் இல்லை, பழையதுலேயே TDS பிடிச்சாச்சா இருக்குன்னு அப்படியே வச்சுக்கோ. Suppose if you are returning the money, so subsequent you adjust. What if there is no this thing? That's the question. Question mark will continue. So whether sale of services is also called with section, where the turnover from will also be included. See, I think this is what we sought as a clarification, but I think they seem to have understood this question differently and gave a different clarification from what was sought. I think what was sought and what was clarified in my view appears to be different. It is clarified for the purpose of 194Q of the Act. The buyer is required to have a total sales of gross receipts or turnover from the business carried on him exceeding 10 crores in the immediately preceding financial year in which the purchase of goods is carried out. So hence the sale or gross receipts or turnover from business carried on by him must exceed 10 crores. His turnover or receipts from non-business activity is not to be counted for the surplus. I don't think that is our question. We all know that non-business activity will not consider. So what has been sought as a clarification was, sectionals apply only for goods. I may have services also as a part of my business, just maybe a repetition. I gave a classic example of sale of computer along with the AMC contract. Now, their clarification is different from what we sought. Turnover or receipts from non-business activity is not to be counted for this purpose. That is not the question at all. Whether my sales includes sales of goods, services, whether goods and services both will be considered for 10 crores. What they are saying, non-business receipts. I think they are trying to clarify. Suppose if you have a capital gains, sale of land இருக்கு, அந்த சேல் ஆஃப் லேண்ட் எடுக்க வேண்டாம் அப்படின்றப்பல இருக்கு. அது நமக்கே தெரியுமா, அது பை நோ ஸ்ட்ரெச் ஆஃப் இமேஜினேஷன் that can be taken. But any of this clarification doesn't serve what we asked for, and therefore the controversy which we talked about earlier will continue to remain. Whether a non-resident can be buyer for the purpose of 194Q. This is a very interesting one because of the fact that the payment has to be made to a resident, but the buyer can be the other person can be a non-resident too. So therefore, they're trying to say that it is classified that the provisions of 194Q, they shall not apply to a non-resident whose purchase of goods from a seller resident in India is not effectively connected with the PE of such non-resident in India. So long as a non-resident doesn't have a permanent establishment in India and it's nothing to do with the PE in India, then 194Q will apply. So because if you see the section, if you take out the section, payment made to a resident, but section applies for both resident as well as a non-resident. Recipient or resident person making the payment can be both resident or a non-resident. I think that's where they try to clarify here. Of course, this clarification, as you may be aware of, it's also there in 194J. So if the payment is made through a regular banking channel, TDS is not required. So it's there in 194J. It's also there now in 194Q. So whether TDS is required to be deducted if the seller's income is exempt from tax. This is a very interesting question. To remove difficulty, it is clarified that the provisions of 184Q of the Act shall not apply on purchase of goods from a person being a seller who as a person is exempt from income tax under the Act, like person exempt under Section 10 or under any other act passed by the Parliament like RBI, ADB Act, etc. The above clarifications would not apply if only part of the income of the person being a seller or being buyer, as the case may be, exempt from tax. That means, so what? My understanding by the person exempt from tax. So there are a lot of sections which give exemption for a coffee board and certain institutions are exempt from tax. I think that is what they are trying to say here. So for those persons, they are exempt from tax as an institution. So in those cases, the question of TDS does not arise. That's what understanding. It's not about ACZ. I think they are talking about the persons who are the person as such is exempt from tax. Whereas 10 AA and all is not a person exempt. It is actually the unit is exempt from tax. It's not the person who's exempt from tax. So therefore, when I refer to 261H, whether sale to SEZ, whether it's subject to 261H, at that point of time, I had my reference also refer the clarification in the 194Q. If you look at 10 AA, 10 AA is not an exemption for the person. 10 AA is an exemption for a unit, for a business unit located in SEZ. It's not an exemption for those. For example, Infosys will get exemption 10 AA, but Infosys as a person is not exempt from tax. That's what I must understand. To take a very simple point, more and easier to understand, if you take 44 AD, 44 AD says the section will apply to all business except the business covered in 44 AE. But then if you go to 44 AD subsection 6, there they will specify if you are a person carrying on agency business or deriving income from commission, then 44 AD is not applicable. So if you look at subsection 6, it talks about persons who are not eligible for 44 AD. That means if I have an agency business, if I'm also doing a trading business, but I can't choose 44 AD for trading business at all because I am a person who derive income from commission. That means the moment I derive income from commission, I as a person not eligible for 44 AD at all. If I have a 44 AA profession, if I have a commission income or agency income, then I am completely out of 44 AD as a person. But as a business, except 44 AE, all businesses are eligible for AD. So that's the easier section for us to understand the difference between eligible business and eligible person. So here also, if you look at, so what they are talking about, they are talking about the persons who are exempt under 10. 10 AA is not exempting a person. 10 AA is only exempting the unit or a business. So therefore, if you are in 10 AA, I don't think you can use the circular. But if you are like a person who is exempt from like a tea board or a coffee board, a lot of institutions are exempt from tax in the provisions. So if you are completely exempt from tax, then in those circumstances, you can't apply 194Q, and this is also going to be applicable for 206C 1H also. So just a very quick comparison between the two sections. So 1/7/2021, 1st October 2020, buyer, seller, rate is same, credit or payment, whichever is earlier, receipt of consideration. Sale or gross receipt, the turnover in the preceding financial year should exceed 10 crores. Here, the sale or gross hours, the preceding financial year exceed 10 crores, same. But only thing is that here the buyer should satisfy the condition. Here, the seller should satisfy the condition. Purchase value should exceed 50 lakhs. There, the receipt of consideration should exceed 50 lakhs. So, again, the statement to be filed and all those things which are there, which are procedural. So, one or two examples to appreciate which section will apply. Turnover for the buyer in the previous year 12 crores, turnover of the seller in the previous year 10 crores. The only one point which I not mentioned in the circular, so I'll clarify that if you are in the first year of business, then the provisions will not apply, both 194Q and 206(1)(h), because the threshold limit has to be seen in the preceding financial year. So if this is your first year, definitely the provisions of 194Q and 206(1)(h) will not apply. So turnover for the buyer in the previous year, 12 crores, turnover for the seller in the 15 crores, amount of purchase 49 lakhs. So the question of applying the section does not arise because of the fact that the conditions are twin. So you have to apply, both the conditions must be satisfied. So here the second example, buyer and seller both cross the 10 crore limit and the purchase bar receipt amount is 50 lakhs. Now both 194Q and 206(1)(h) both are applicable in this particular case. So the question which arises now, which section should apply? As we already mentioned and discussed, 194Q alone will apply. But the board has clarified that in the event of seller already collected 206(1)(h), then you don't have to apply 194Q. But for some reason, TCS has already been collected, then 194Q will not apply. This is there in the board circular number 13/2020. So buyer 9 crores, seller 15 crores. So therefore now seller alone satisfies with the condition. So therefore 206(1)(h) will apply. Receipt of consideration is 50 lakhs. You apply 0.5% of 2 lakhs. Turnover of the buyer at 10, including GST of 0.5. Turnover of the seller is 15, and amount of purchase, amount receipt 52 lakhs. So here, if we exclude the GST, it comes to only 9.5. So therefore, the condition is satisfied only by the seller. Therefore, 206(1)(h) will apply. So, so these are about the two interesting sections of 194Q and 206(1)(h). So the section which has been widely talked about, but when I was speaking in the Madurai branch on June 12th, that point out in itself, I told very clearly, you don't have to worry about, there will be a utility similar to that of 194N will come. So let's not worry about the applicable to the section. But however, for some reason, a lot of mailers came to all of us, give your income tax returns, give your this thing, all this stuff. I think the board has tweeted long back as soon as the section. After the new portal came into effect, will facilitate this. I think we can't fault the department here. Though some people were in the WhatsApp university were saying, no, this they could have given long back. I think they've already tweeted long back that we will give the utility of checking whether the section is applicable or not. That they were long back tweeted. Only thing is that they also said after the new portal was ready, we'll do that. I think somewhere people have missed that particular point. I won't fault the board for this because they've already clarified this particular point. So nevertheless, we'll just try to understand the section because a lot of questions keep coming on this particular section. So whether the TDS under chapter 17B is required deducted by a person for a specified person, we take from 1st July 2021. So therefore, to apply the 206AB, the TDS under chapter 17B is required deducted by a person for a specific person with effect from 1st July 2020. So if the section is applicable on payment basis, the payment should be made on or after 1/7/2021. If the section is on credit the payment, whichever is earlier, so it will be on that basis from 1st July 2020. A person who has not filed income tax return for the 2 previous years immediately prior to the previous year in which tax has to be deducted, and the aggregate value of TDS and TCS in his case is INR 50,000 or more in each of such previous years. So you have not filed the tax returns for the 2 previous years immediately prior to the previous year in which the TDS has to be deducted, and the aggregate value of TDS and TCS in that case is 50,000 more on each of such periods. So the conditions are cumulative. You should not have filed the return for the 2 previous years immediately prior to the previous year in which tax has to be deducted. And the aggregate value of TDS and TCS in this case is 50,000 more on each of such previous years. So I think the simple way in which you can go about this section, use the utility of the income tax department and then decide rather than going by the merits of the section. So the rate will depend upon whether 206AA applies or not. 206AA provides for a high rate of tax in case PAN or Aadhaar number is not furnished. So if PAN or Aadhaar number is already furnished and 206AA does not apply, the higher of the following, twice the rate specified in the relevant provisions of the Act, twice the rates in force or at the rate of 5%. If 206AA also applies, either 206AB or 206AA, whichever is higher. I think it's, in my view, it's another needless section at this point in time. I don't think these are the sections which are needed at the COVID times, even any time, but more important during the COVID times. These are all unnecessary compliance burden. And I don't know why we need to use TDS for the provisions of compliance. They already have enough bandwidth or enough information, enough data analysis to do this. And I think making the TDS as a mechanism to do it is very, very unfortunate, but yeah, be that way, that is the case they have followed. So this section is not applicable for 192, 192A, 194B, BB, LBC, and 194N. So these sections are not covered by 206AB. So all these questions, as I said, are very, very easy to apply Gauda utility. But a couple of challenges could be, suppose if the person is not required to file the tax returns as per section 139(1), suppose if his income has not exceeded the basic exemption limit, in those circumstances, so the question, can we apply to 206AB? That is the only problem, because his income is below taxable limit, and if he has not filed the tax returns for the last 2 years, you can't apply this particular section. So therefore, this is going to be a very difficult point. The utility may not throw this particular point. So therefore, in that particular case, we have to exercise the discretion and then still remain without deducting the higher rates. But I think we need to take enough documentation support for the non-compliance part of it. This problem could be also there in the case of non-residents who may not be required to file the tax returns also. But as I told you, this is something which could have been a section which could have been avoided for the time being. I don't think the section is needed at this point in time. So what we need is a more simple 184Q, 206(1)H, 206AB. All the sections can wait. I don't think 2020 or 2021 is the right time to introduce these kind of sections. And this is another very interesting section, 194P, reduction of tax in the case of specified senior citizen. So senior citizen aged 75 and above, not required to file return of income. So when this speech was made, now in the 75th year of independence of our country, when we continue our endeavor with renewed vigor, we shall reduce the compliance burden on our senior citizens for 75 years of age and above. For senior citizens who only have pension and interest income, I propose exemption from filing their income tax returns. A paying bank will deduct the necessary tax on their income. So when this budget proposal were there, this was the faces how these two senior citizens were absolutely very happy. You can see their face, they're smiling. Oh, finally somebody has taken care of us. So a lot of it is there include the budget speech also. So therefore, I think the intent was very good. I think we must appreciate the intent was very good, but I think the problem was only the execution. Now this is the reaction post on seeing the section, how it works. So the previous photo is after reading the budget speech, after listening to the budget speech. So this is post. Now look at what is the section says. He has pension income and no other income. However, in addition to such pension income, he may also have interest income from the same bank in which is receiving pension income. Question number 1, how many people with 75 years and above first file the tax returns? Statistics you all have. How many people are going to have this? Why waste the time in the budget speech? I also have one section. And then the government will notify specified banks. The declaration to be furnished to the specified bank. The declaration shall contain such particulars in such form and verified in such manner as may be prescribed. The specified bank, after considering Chapter 6 reductions and 87 rebate, compute the total income of the senior citizen, deduct income tax at the rates in force. If all these are done, written off income is not required for the relevant assessment here. The details bank கொடுக்கிறதுக்கு நேர ஒரு சார்ட் அக்கௌண்ட் ஆஃபீஸ்ல போய் கொடுத்துடலாம், அவங்களே இதை ஃபைட் பண்ணுவாங்க இல்லையா? That is more easier. And secondly, expecting the banker, I think how many work they will do. It's a needless burden on them also. And seeing all these conditions are going to be very, the intent is beautiful. I think the idea was good, but I think they lost in the execution part of it. So already we are talking about pre-filled incomes. ஒண்ணுமே தேவையில்லை, எல்லாமே பென்ஷன் வரும்போது எல்லா பேங்க்ல இருக்க இன்ட்ரெஸ்டும் வர போறது ஆக்சுவலா. ஸோ அப்படி இருக்கும்போது already all information is got there, and the CA is going to do in 5 minutes time instead of going to the bank and giving all this. பேங்க்ல பொறுத்த வரை ரிஸ்க் வேற. அட்லீஸ்ட் சார்ட் அக்கௌண்டன்ஸ் ஆஃபீஸ் போறதான அவ்வளோ ரிஸ்க் கிடையாது இப்போ கோவிட் சுச்சுவேஷன்ல. இவங்க பேங்க்ல போய் இந்த டீட்டெயில்ஸ் ஃபர்னிஷ் பண்ணி அவங்களோட உட்காந்து இது எதுவுமே ஒன்றும் நோட்டிஃபை ஆகல ஆக்சுவலா. ஸோ த ஐடியா வாஸ் பிரில்லியன்ட், பட் ஐ திங்க் சம்வேர் execution there was a problem. I think we have to give them some time. Let's see that whether this section undergoes some modification for the next year to serve its truly purpose. I think the speech, everything was fantastic. I think we have to really execute the way in which is conceived to execution or challenge grammar in the details la கொடுக்கிறதுக்கு நேர ஸ்ட்ரைட் போடும். I think it's an additional burden needlessly on the bankers also. I don't think the section serves any purpose. Intent was good, execution was bad. So my last section for this, if you look at the 194p, as it said, notwithstanding within contained the provisions of chapter 17b, the case of a specified senior citizen, the specified bank shall, after giving effect to the reduction allowable under chapter 6a and rebate allowable under 87a, compute the total income of such specified senior citizen for the 11th assessment and deduct income tax on such total income on the basis of rates in force. I feel more than the specified bank, the chartered accountants are more competent to do this, more knowledge to do this, and expecting a banker to understand the provisions of income tax act is very, very unfair. The provisions of section 139 shall not apply to the specified senior citizen for the assessment relevant to the previous in which such tax has been deducted under subsection 1. Oh, again, there is a problem. You have already said section 139 is not applicable to them. Now, what will happen now? You will apply 206AB, because on this basis, let's assume for a moment they go to the banker and are given all these details with all complexity relating to the section. Let's assume the senior citizen goes here and gives all these things and uses 194p. And in the income tax portal, you will not find this person's have filed the tax returns. So therefore, what will happen? 206AB will apply, and therefore, all the more they're not going to use the section. So I think there is a clear conflict, and these are all have to be factored, and we'll hope that it will serve the purpose. So look at, just for the fun of it, we can read. Specified means by banking company, central government notified. Specified senior citizen means individual being resident in India, whose age of 75 years or more at any time during the previous year, having income in the nature of pension and no other income except income in the nature of interest received or receivable from any account maintained by such individual in the same specified bank. See, the bank which gives a pension, which most of them are the public sector banks, they don't give more than 2.53% interest. Some private banks give 5%, 6%, 7%, even the SB. Oh, is it a crime for them to put their hard-earned money in some other bank? I think one cannot understand this logic at all. Very, very unfortunate. I think we should definitely give the senior citizen the real intent has to be satisfied there. I think the intent was good, the start was there. Let's hope in the coming budget it serve the purpose. My last section 184N, though its section is already there from 1st July 2020. It was introduced in 1st September 2019. Every bank, cooperative society engaged in banking or post office required direct tax at source. The rate at which tax is required at the rate of 2% if the aggregate of cash withdrawn in the financial year exceeds 1 crore. This was the original section from 1st September 2019 to 30th June 2020. From 1st July 2020, the existing section continues plus one additional point. If written off income is not filed for all the 3 previous years, now this in contradistinction to 206 AB, which uses the word not filed in the 2 previous years. Therefore, if you are filed in 1 year also, I feel 206 AB will not apply. But whereas in 194N, if written off income is not filed for all the 3 previous years preceding the previous year in which the payment of such income is made. Again, we have another problem. Suppose assume I withdraw cash from the bank today, for which the time limit for filing the tax return is not yet over. Now they say the return of income is not filed for all the 3 previous years. I filed for the previous 2 years. 3rd year, my due date itself has not come. Now is an extra due date is there. If in this between period, if I do this, what will happen? 2% of the amount paid exceeds 20 lakhs but does not exceed 1 crore, or 5% if the amount paid exceeds 100 lakhs. Any other case, 2% off. So that means they retain the section. This is a precursor. So always you will find 206C 1H precursor. How is the people reaction? They keep quiet. Introduce 194Q also. Then you just give a 194N. Again, no much of a criticism. Then introduce an extended version of it for 1st July 2020. So here, if written off income is not filed for all the 3 previous preceding the previous in which payment of such sum is made, 2% between 20 lakhs to 1 crore, 5% the amount exceeds 100 lakhs. In any other case, 2%. That means existing section continues, but for non-filers, so we are using the TDS as a route to regularize. So that seems to be the sum and substance of all the trying, whether 206 AB, 194, and all of them seem to be just giving a message. Yes, there is a need for you guys to file the tax returns. But the challenge is you also consider the previous year, preceding the previous year, for which the due date itself would not have expired. So ideally, what section should have said? The previous year preceding the so therefore, the last previous year they should exclude. Of course, they want you to rely on the utility. I think the utility will factor this particular point. So I think this functionality which they all talk about, this was I was talking about in the Madurai branch also. Likewise, they will have a utility. That's what eventually happened in the case of 206 AB also. So with this, I think I will just so give it back to the branch chairman or the person. So to hand over the proceedings. Thank you. Thanks for your patience. As always, a great pleasure in interacting with all of you. Over to the branch or further.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your elaborate address on this particular topic. Members, if you have any doubt or if you want any clarification, sir is available. You can clarify your doubts now. Either you can give it in chat box or you can unmute your mic and you can ask. Members, you have any clarification one? Sir, one question in chat box. One member asked that our turnover is more than 10 crore. We are paying 4 crore electricity to Tangentco. Will 194Q will apply?
I think there is a clarification relating to electricity. So the 184Q will not apply as
Power exchange.
The board has already clarified this particular.
சுரேஷ் சார் ஒரு கிளாரிபிகேஷன்.
சொல்லுங்க சார்.
நாங்க பெட்ரோல் பங்க் டீலர்.
சரி.
We are supplying it to corporations.
பெட்ரோல்
டீசல் எல்லாம் சப்ளை பண்றோம். My turnover exceeds 50 crores. அதாவது நான் சப்ளை பண்ற அந்த கம்பெனி என்னுடைய டர்னோவர் 100 கோடி ரூபாய். பட் அந்த கார்பரேஷன் நான் கொடுக்கறது வந்து 20 கோடி ரூபாய்க்கு மேல இருக்கு ஒவ்வொரு கார்பரேஷன். எனக்கு டிடிஎஸ் சிசிஎஸ் உண்டா? ஏன்னா அவங்க வந்து ரிட்டர்னை ஃபைல் பண்றது இல்ல. கார்பரேஷன் இது வரைக்கும் எந்த ரிட்டர்னும் ஃபைல் பண்ணா அவங்க பேன் எல்லாம் இருக்கு, ரிட்டர்ன் ஃபைல் பண்ண மாதிரி எங்க எவிடன்ஸ் இல்ல. 1 ஜூலைக்கு அப்புறம் என்னுடைய பொசிஷன் என்ன?
Whether that is corporation comes under exemption under 10 of the Income Tax Act. See, are they and the idea partana whether that particular corporation, like as I said in the coffee board, tea board mari, are they coming under the
special? ஒரு உதாரணம் எடுத்துக்கோமே, மெட்ராஸ் கார்ப்பரேஷன் இருக்கு, இப்ப திருநெல்வேலி கார்ப்பரேஷன் இருக்கு. ரெண்டுமே அவங்க ரெண்டு பேருக்கு தான் சப்ளை பண்றோம்.
அவங்களுக்கு வந்து எனக்கு they are not taxable, so therefore the question of applying the board clarify பண்ணிட்டாங்களே. the corporation when you talked about corporation I thought அதேன்ற மாதிரி இப்ப சென்னை கார்ப்பரேஷன் அவள they are not 1020 லே வந்துடுறாங்க, அவள exempted income, so they are exempted.
They have to file the return இல்லையா?
I think 1020 ல வரதுனால I don't think அவங்களுக்கு இன்னும் அந்த compulsory mandate இன்னும் 139(1) சீரிஸ்ல போடல அவங்கள. So they are
ஃபைல் பண்ணி ஆகணும் இல்லையோ? ஐடிஆர் ஃபைல் பண்ணணும் இல்லையோ அவங்க?
I think அவ அந்த யூட்டிலிட்டில வர மாட்டாங்கன்னு நினைக்கிறேன்.
லாஸ்ட் கிளாரிஃபிகேஷன்ல இருக்கான்னு சொல்லி ஒரு இது கொடுத்திருக்கா பாருங்களேன் போன வருஷத்துல.
See, the question 2 point இதுல சார். One is the board is very clearly said 184Q will not apply. So we are talking about 206 AB or 184Q on the question.
Yes.
If you are talking about 194Q, the question does not arise because of the fact they are local authorities are exempt from tax specifically. They are a person exempt from tax.
Correct. அது முதல்ல இருக்குது.
So therefore அவளுக்கு the question of applying the section does not arise. Because they are a non-filer 206 AB வருமா அப்படின்றதுனா I think when I'm not required to file, I mean see procedurally சில சொல்றதுக்கும் இதுக்கும் இது இருக்கு actually. If you look at 139(4A) 14 அந்த மாதிரி நிறைய செக்ஷன்ஸ்ல இருக்கும்போது இவாலாம் அதுல charitable trust அந்த மாதிரி people தான் மாடல the corporationக்கு அவளுக்கு 139ல mandatory are required, not mandated by the law to file the tax returns. So once I'm not required to file the tax return, the question of applying 206 AB also does not arise.
Good. Right.
சார் இது எக்ஸ்போர்ட்டர்ஸ் வந்துட்டு MEIS லைசன்ஸ் ஸ்கிரிப்ட் வாங்குறாங்க சார் ஃபார் தி எக்ஸ்போர்ட் அவங்க பண்ண வேல்யூக்கு தகுந்த மாதிரி. Suppose if they transfer that script to some other importers, நம்ம லைசன்ஸ் சேல்ஸ் அந்த மாதிரி எல்லாம் இருக்குங்களா சார்? அதுக்கு வந்துட்டு
in my view that is not goods within the meaning of 194Q or 206(1H) to attract the section.
Okay.
அதனுடைய டர்ன்ஓவர் அதனுடைய சேல்ஸ் நான் டர்ன்ஓவருக்கு எடுத்துக்கலாமான்றதுல வேணா ஒரு क्वेश्चन வரலாமே தவிர not for the purpose of applying this.
TCS க்கு அந்த சேல் பார்க்க வேண்டியது இல்ல இல்லையா சார்?
அடா அதுதான் क्वेश्चन.
அக்கா கூப்பிட்டாங்க.
ஓகே, थैंक यू.
ஆமாங்க. ஏதோ வேலை இருக்குன்னு அக்கா கூப்பிட்டாங்க. கால்ல வந்துருங்க.
செந்தில் சார் மியூட் பண்ணிக்கங்க சார். செந்தில் குமார்
மியூட் ஆல் பண்ணுங்க.
சார் அந்த சாட் அந்த எலக்ட்ரிசிட்டி அந்த क्वेश्चनலயே இன்னொரு क्वेश्चन அவங்க கேட்டிருக்காங்க. Sir, currently Tangentco is
Charging 206.
charging 260 1H. Till last month, we are purchasing HT directly. So will 194Q applicable from July 21?
So whether they have stopped see if they see இப்போ போர்டோட கிளாரிபிகேஷன் அவங்க என்ன சொல்றாங்கன்னா 206 1H பை சான்ஸ் அவங்க சார்ஜ் பண்ணிட்டா நம்ம பண்ண வேணான்ற சொல்றாங்க.
ஆமாங்க.
So therefore if they continue to charge, you don't have to do it. So
we need not to practice 194Q. அதுல சொல்ற அவங்க பவர் எக்ஸ்சேஞ்ச் வந்து Tangentco applicable ஆக இல்லைங்க சார். பவர் எக்ஸ்சேஞ்சில் பர்ச்சேஸ் பண்ணணும்.
ஆமா, அது அந்த ஸ்பெசிபிக் கிளாரிஃபிகேஷன் இருக்கு அவங்க அதுல. எலக்ட்ரிசிட்டி இஸ் குட்ஸ். See, the answer is yes. But the only thing is that அந்த நமக்கு போர்ட்ல கொடுத்த அந்த போர்ட் சர்க்கிள்ல கொடுத்த கிளாரிஃபிகேஷன் கீழே நம்ம வந்தோம். த்ரூ பவர் எக்ஸ்சேஞ்ச் வழியா பவர் கிரிட் அந்த மாதிரி நம்ம வாங்கினோம்னா கிடையாது. If you are otherwise the section will apply.
டைரக்டா பர்ச்சேஸ் பண்ண வர இல்லைங்க.
டைரக்டா பர்ச்சேஸ் பண்ணும்போது லைக் அந்த நீங்க எப்படி இது பண்றீங்க அந்த இருக்கு. பட் பிரைம் ஆஃபீஸி அந்த சர்க்குலர்ல ஆன்ஜிடோ அவங்க பண்றதுனால ஐ திங்க் நீங்க அந்த சர்க்குலர் கீழே விழலன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். ஆக்சுவலா in that particular case you tell them that no longer you deduct TCS, we will charge TDS from 1st July அவங்களுக்கு ஒரு லெட்டர் கொடுத்து அவங்கள ஸ்டாப் பண்ண சொல்லிடலாம் நீங்க ஆக்சுவலா கோயிங் ஃபார்வர்ட்.
Chairman, shall we conclude? On behalf of our Tirupur branch of SCRC of ICI, I convey my great thanks to our today's speaker, CA TG Suresh sir, for immediately accepted our invitation and addressed our members on this various clarifications regarding TDS and TCS. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I also thank all the members who joined for this seminar and your patient listening. And I thank all our branch staffs who made arrangement for conducting this CPE seminar through virtual mode. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.